5:30, so we will get this meeting started. NASCO, we're good? Wonderful, thank you. Thank you to everybody in attendance, and thank you to everybody online. Is there kind of a
little bit of
tinge,
an echo,
if you will, an echo or something?
It's your voice.
Yeah, you're probably right. Anyway, maybe NASCO can tweak it, maybe it can't. So, once again, thank you to everybody for being here this Monday, October 30th, to be a part of our business meeting. If you have an agenda in front of you, item number 1 is our strategies. Item number 2 is our YouTube link where this meeting can be found. And item number 3 is our call to order. So, Ms. Steves, will you please determine if we have a quorum present?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do.
Thank you. With that, I'd ask everybody to stand for the pledge if you're able to.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Bellingham, thank you for leading us in the pledge.
You're welcome.
This brings us to item number 4, approval of the agenda. And before we do that, I would like to add one item. Mr. Gunderson, our activities director, is here. And I think everybody on this board knows we try to draw a pretty firm line in the sand about adding additional items to the agenda. But he has an item that, due to timeliness, and when he just got some information, Mr. Gunderson, it's regarding Faribault Public Schools and co-ops, some activity co-ops with other schools in our community, correct? So we're going to add that to item, we're going to put that as 6B. So that'll come after the student representative report, and that will be an action item. Is there any issue with that, anyone? Okay, wonderful, thank you. With that, Ms. Moore, you had mentioned that you wanted to.
Yes, I would just, for the policies, I would like to pull out, please, 907 and 406.
907 and 406.
Correct.
Okay, so when we get to those, when we get to item 11B and we consider approval of those, we will take all the other ones with one motion, and then we will look at policy 907 and policy 406 individually, okay? Anything else regarding the agenda, anyone? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda with those changes.
Also move.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Bellingham, a second by Ms. Boudreau. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item number 5. Consider approval of the fiscal year 2023 audit. Welcome to the audit team. Yeah, I suppose. Thank you, Mr. Bellingham. Usually we entertain a motion to approve before they present, so I'll entertain a motion to approve this before they present, and then we'll get into the presentation.
So move.
Second.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Mhm.
The
So-
floor, the microphone, everything is yours.
So I'm going to start in a little bit here and introduce you, but before I say that, I want to say this is just one of many people who worked on this audit, both internally and externally. Bergen KDV had a team of, I think, 7 people that overall worked on our audit. Most of them did all of their work in a 1-week time frame, so it was a very efficient, fast-paced week, right? But it was a very efficient audit. So with me tonight is Carolyn Stutzman, who is our new audit partner for Bergen KDV. She was just promoted here 4, 5, 6 months ago, whatever it was. Some of you might remember Nancy Schultzenberg. She was our audit partner previous to that. They're kind of in the transition where Carolyn will be with us for the next, I don't know, however many years, and kind of leading our audit. So I'm going to turn the floor over to her. She has a presentation, which I think is going to be up on the screen here shortly. And then you'll have an opportunity at the end to ask her questions, and we'll kind of go from there. So
Thank you for the introduction. Again, I'm Caroline Stutzman. I'd like to take a few minutes of your time then and go through the results of the audit for June 30, 2023.
Can you do your best to talk into that and
Yes,
talk loud
absolutely.
if you will?
I will move it forward.
Thank you.
Yep, and move my notes here. The main reason you ask us to work with you is to provide an opinion on the financial statements. The opinion is housed within the independent auditor's report. Also within the independent auditor's report is both management's responsibility as well as ours. And within there, management's responsibility is indicated as being responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of the financial statements in accordance with GAAP. Really what that's getting at, they are responsible for determining the numbers. Then our responsibility is to conduct our audit, provide the opinion on those numbers based on the audit that we're doing. So the opinion we're providing is what's called an unmodified opinion. That's the highest level that you can receive, not a change from what you've received in the past, meaning we believe those financial statements are fairly stated in all material respects as of June 30th, 2023. In addition to looking at the numbers as we go throughout our process, we also conducted our audit in accordance with government auditing standards, meaning we considered internal controls as we went throughout our process. We did not have any findings related to the internal controls here for you, for the district. That is something we don't always get to sit in front of boards and say, so that is definitely of note. In addition, we conducted a report in accordance with uniform guidance. So because the district spends more than $750,000 of federal expenditures, we are required to do some additional work. We tested 4 additional programs in relation to that. Single audits would be another term that you're probably more familiar with. So we tested 4 programs. We did have one internal control item that came to light through that process. We've discussed that through the Finance Committee as well. I wasn't going to touch on that in great detail unless there were specific questions related to it. One final component before we dig into the numbers is related to Minnesota legal compliance. The Office of the State Auditor puts together 7 checklists filled with many questions about Minnesota state statutes. We did not have any findings related to any of that information either. So with that, we'll dig into the financial analysis, and we start with the 2 main components of general education aid. The formula allowance and pupil units being those 2 main drivers, obviously much more complicated, but with general education aid being the largest funding source for you as a school district in the state of Minnesota, that's where we start. So formula allowance is here, showing where it has been, what we know as of today, based on legislature approval, but focusing on that 2023 line and the 2% increase that was received. Next, we look at pupil units, and we start with your resident ADM. So these are only the students living within your district, and for 2023, resident ADMs did decrease by 48. Then if we apply the weighting factors that are at the very top, as well as take into consideration open enrollment, we arrive at pupil units served, and this is what you are paid off of from the state. So the top line follows in suit with what we just looked at as far as residents, so seeing the decrease there. The next 2 lines are the impact of open enrollment, and then seeing that the ending result for pupil units served decreased as well. The very last item is adjusted ADM. That's another way to look at pupil units, and that is the pupil units served without the weighting factors applied to it. So I believe that is the number that is communicated to you quite frequently, so just wanted to point that out as well. That number decreased as well. This chart just shows that information in percentages, so not going to spend much more time on that. And then we dig into the general fund sources of revenue. So in total, revenue for the general fund did increase about 2.2%. The majority of that happening in the state sources, with the reasonings that we've touched on already, being that the formula allowance did increase. That was partially offset by that decrease in enrollment that we talked about, but the other main driver is special education entitlement and dollars received for that. This slide here shows us revenues per ADM served. It not only allows us to present for your district, but gives some ability to compare to some state average information. So we see for 2023 an increase that correlates to the increase in revenue that I just touched on. Then if we go back to 2022, we do have the ability to compare to some state average information. So again, it's an average. Not always apples to apples from one district to another. Demographics of your kiddos definitely come into play on the revenue side and the expenditure side. So things like special education, compensatory aid, federal dollars, all of those things definitely can change from one district to another. But for your district, seeing that you are above what the state average is in total, as well as in the state and federal line, and then under on the property taxes and other local sources. So we start with revenues because essentially you're going to be spending within your means. And when we look at the next slide, which is expenditures per ADM served, you see a very similar slide, or a story, I should say, about 2022 being above the state average. Here we have a slide for general fund expenditures showing just from a piece of the pie standpoint as far as spending levels by program. And comparing one year to the next, pretty similar percentages. Most fluctuate only about a percentage point. We do see an increase on the special education side. As we saw in the revenue, you're also seeing the increased costs on the expenditure side. So that change is really driving some of the other changes that you see. Here we have a chart showing the Big Nine schools, and similar to what we just looked at, kind of the piece of the pie. This is the expenditure per ADM served, so just kind of additional information for you to compare your district to some of your neighboring districts, as well as the state average. So showing things like special education, where you are a little higher than what the state average is, district and school administration under what the state average is, pupil support a little higher. So just kind of some additional information to see where you lie in comparison to your peers. Here we have a budget to actual snapshot for the general fund. The first column there is the original budget. What was originally anticipated. The final budget after some amendments is in the second column, actual results are in the third, and then a variance column in the fourth. So actual results showing that fund balance increased by about $417,000 for the year. And if we look at some of the variances on that far right column, for example, total revenue over budget there, 2.2%. Really, the main drivers of that had to do with spending some additional federal dollars for the ESSER grant, as well as additional revenue that was received for PSEO students in comparison to the budget. And on the expenditure side of things, over budget slightly there, but if we apply a percentage to that, it's 1%. And some of the main drivers there really are in that special education line, again, with the increasing costs related to the needs that you have. So here we bring the general fund all together, and we've touched on revenues already and expenditures, as well as that change in fund balance. So we see that ending fund balance then is just under $8 million, and all of the components of the fund balance are listed below. It's all right.
Hang on one
Sure.
All right.
There we go.
Ben Heck.
That's okay. It's okay. Yep. Oh, sorry. No, that's okay. So here at the bottom of the slide here, then we have all of the components of fund balance. Oh, if we could go back to that last one. I didn't quite finish there. So a little bit more of a breakdown on that total fund balance. So at the top, there's items that are titled non-spendable. These are for items as listed, prepaids, inventory. Really, it's $4 that have either left the building or will not be collected in the short period of time within a year or so. So those are the components that you have. So really not dollars readily right available for future operations. Then you have a larger category for restricted. These are all of those state mandated restrictions where you receive funding to be spent then in accordance with how the dollars are received. All of those components, if we add them up and compare to the previous year, increased about $600,000 for the year. And then unassigned, those are at 0 for the year. That leaves us with unassigned, which is what's available for future operations without any earmarks or tags associated with them. And that balance decreased by $153,000 for the year. That is also the balance that you weigh or you've established with your fund balance policy is how I would say that's the piece that you look at in relation to that, where you've indicated you would have a minimum of 9.5% of annual budgeted expenditures. If you run the calculation for this year, you are at 13.4%, so you are in compliance with the policy you've established for yourselves. And here we have yet another way to look at fund balance, and that is unrestricted expenditures as unrestricted fund balance as a percentage of unrestricted expenditures. So this is the SOD calculation. Again, it gives us the ability to compare it to some state average information. So seeing where you are in the blue, slightly down just a bit from the previous year, but overall for the 5 years pretty comparable and under where the state average is.
So this calculation to get this percentage is slightly different than the calculation you just mentioned on the previous slide, right?
Correct. And we use the states because it's pretty complicated to pull all of the specific unrestricted expenditures and do a manual calculation. So they do that. And yeah, so it's the non-spendable pieces. If you had assignments, it would be within there as well. So yeah,
thank you.
everything but the restricted components. So here we have the food service fund operations, showing that revenues were down for the year and expenditures up slightly. This fund and the operations of the fund went back to normal programming, so to say. So a switch in the revenue source because of that. But showing that fund balance did increase about $250,000 and ended the year at $1.8 million. Very common to see balances within the food service fund with the districts that we're working in across the state. Community Service Fund is our last fund to touch on, seeing increases in the revenue and expenditures for the fund just as programming continues to rebound, and showing all of the components of fund balance. And they're at the bottom. All are positive, which is also not something that we always are able to say as we sit and communicate with boards. So great to see that they all are self-supporting. With that, I'd be happy to take any questions anyone might have.
Wonderful, thank you. Board members, before I open the floor to all of you, Ms. Stutzman, just a quick question for you. Bergen KDV audits approximately how many school districts in Minnesota?
Right in the range of 100, give or take.
About
So,
100.
Around 100.
And roughly how many school districts get the audit report findings that you mentioned up on page 2 and 3?
The not having any part of it. That's
Correct.
probably right around, somewhere from 5 to 10%. That's not quite as common. The unmodified opinion, that's common. That it's rare that we're not able to give that opinion, but to say that there aren't any written internal control findings, that part's more rare to be able to sit here and share with you. So, yeah, that 5 to 10%.
Thank you. So just to follow up on that, of the 100 or so school districts you audit, are processes, procedures, audit tracking, all of whatever else goes into this is in the top 5 or 10% of all the school districts in Minnesota that you audit?
Mm-hmm.
Fair to say?
Fair.
Wonderful. I just want to really hit home on that. And number one, thank Mr. Gerdes and the entire team of whoever touches this. There's people I'm certain that I don't know that touch this. Wonderful. Thank you. And I just want to make sure that our community understands how clean this audit is. I know that there's people at times that think, well, the school district does this or a government agency or organization does this. This is something we should all be very, very proud of, especially the 7 of us and Superintendent Benty. And so Just once again, thank you, Mr. Gertis, to everybody that touches this from your team, if you will, and whoever else. So thank you. I appreciate that. With that, I will open it up. Board members, questions, comments? The floor is yours. You want me to go again?
Go ahead.
Okay. So just to reiterate, I am looking at slide 11 and slide 12, if you will. When we compare our financial expenditures, if you will, in the buckets that they're in, Ms. Averill, I'm on page 12 if you want. So we're comparing the big 9 schools and we're comparing to the state average. Our district and school administration expenses as a percent of expenses is 6.7%. That appears to be the second lowest in the big 9 and 2% roughly, or 2% exactly below the state average. Is that correct?
That's what the data is showing,
That's
yep.
what it shows. Okay.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate confirmation of that as well.
Yes.
So,
Mhm.
Mr. Bellingham, or did you have a question or comment?
No, I did not.
No?
Yeah,
Ms. Moore?
Mr. Chair, yeah, I was looking at page 11, this,
Mhm.
and I see you did have the total cost of all expenditures. I see
Mm-hmm.
that. I may be missing it, but what was the total revenue for the, was that on there? Maybe
Yep,
I'm missing
a
it.
couple slides back, if
Oh,
you
couple
scroll
slides
2 more
back.
down, or the other way,
Okay.
1 more. Yep, and then way to the far right, looks like it's cut off just a little
Well,
bit
that's one
at the top.
That's one I had trouble seeing.
Yep, there we go. So there's the total on the far right, the
On the far right?
top,
it's-
very top one on the far right. Yep, right there.
Oh, all right. Oh, I see it. Okay,
Yep.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Board members, other questions, comments? All right. I do have one other one. I feel like this is, I know this is my 9th year on the board, and I feel like the majority of these we're approving in late November or in December. By my calendar, we're still in October. So thank you to all of you. Once again, thank you to Bergen KDV for getting us done earlier than later. I'm sure it's a great thing to have off your plate. But am I correct? Usually it's later in the year that we're approving this?
I think the last 2 years, or ever since we kind of switched, I think, to Bergen KDV, it's been earlier. They obviously have been able to fit us in faster into their busy audit schedule and wrap us up so that we can be done in October. But prior to that, I think it was November, it was December of the year I started here, I think, that we wrapped things up. So it doesn't drag out near as long anymore. I mean, it's one long week. But for the most part, we're done. I mean, there's follow-up checks and checks to the checks, and they might even check that yet, but, and then just putting the documents together and sitting here in front of you today.
Wonderful. Yes, Mr. Olson.
Yeah, this document is submitted to the state or
Yes.
not? Now, do they comment on anything or not? On this audit?
I mean, I'm trying to think if I've ever.
Do they
gotten a
review
comment
it
back.
themselves, their auditors themselves, or not really?
Well, they compile the information, I do know that, yep. They're not gonna do like a separate audit of it, I don't believe, but they definitely compile the information.
Okay.
Yep.
That is accurate. They will, if we get audited in a specific program area, they will pull this data to use for that audit
Okay.
that we submit, but they don't re-audit the audit.
So we have never had a state auditor down in our district, into your office?
In my tenure, we have not had a state auditor, but right before I started here, we had a food service audit, which happens about every 3 years. It's been a little bit delayed. We are going to go through a food service audit in 25. We're scheduled for 25, so that will be an independent audit that look at different things as we run the food service program, right? Not so much on the financial information that Bergen KDV did. We get independent desk audits all the time for community ed and for ESSER. That when I say a desk audit, they just send us this thing. We have to respond back to it. They don't physically show up, but they audit us from their desk. We get those all the time, probably 2, 3, 4 a year, auditing something, making sure we did this right or that right. But nothing to the level of what this independent audit does for us.
Have we had any federal auditors come down because we're using the federal funds?
All of the federal funds are audited by the Department of Education. So a lot of those desk audits that I just mentioned are based on federal dollars. ESSER, which is federal money, title, which is federal money. I think Rob probably has a few special ed audits from time to time, which is, some of that's federal dollars too.
Mr.
Here,
Robichaud?
just history, years ago, we had a student attendance audit from the Department of Education. That was long before anybody in this room was even around, so I'll tell you. The other thing about the Department of Education, I think they want to make sure the audit is completed. They're going to trust the auditors that they are doing their ethical jobs of auditing, so they're more interested in, did the district in fact conduct the audit, and in a timely manner?
Correct.
Thank you, Mr. Robichaud. Any other questions or comments regarding this?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank Mr. Gertis for what you do, and also I think you very efficient. And I do appreciate when I ask questions through an email that you're very prompt, even if it's late at night, which I'm surprised at. So thank you very much.
Hey, Jeff, one thing, Jeff, I want to just thank again Carolyn and Nancy and Natasha and Kim and Jackson, and there's several others I'm not remembering, for the work they did too. And as well, thank my team. I know Brett couldn't be here tonight because of the board meeting shift, but I know he's watching from afar. He was a big part of this, and Kim and Jill and Delilah and Brenda and all the people that work in the accounting and Mars area that pull all the numbers together and respond to all the emails during that week of the audit. So I want to thank them as well, because there's no possible way I could do this by myself. So.
Wonderful. Well noted. Thank you. So with that, hearing no further questions, we do have a motion by Ms. Boudreau, a second by Mr. Robichaud. Any further questions, comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, this brings us to item number 6, recognition, awards, and presentations. We do not have any, correct? None there. So that brings us to 6A, student representative report, and I do not see either of our representatives here tonight. So this brings us to item 6B, the item that we added, Mr. Gunderson, regarding co-ops, Faribault Public Schools and activity co-ops. Ms. Zavarol, I don't know if there's an opportunity for you to work with Mr. Gunderson after this to whatever he's got, if we can post anything. to the board.
I have all of it. So I can
Oh, you do?
post it
Okay.
after.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. Mr. Gunderson.
Hey, thanks for having me. In the fall, we did our co-ops for the fall sports, added Shattuck to, I want to say 4 or 5 of our fall sports, and right now I wanted to get them done for our winter and spring. The first paperwork is the dissolution of previous co-ops. This is required by the high school league. They want you to dissolve those old co-ops and then rewrite them with the new co-ops. So those pages are signed. The new co-ops will have boys hockey. We're adding Randolph along with BA. Gymnastics, we're adding Shattuck St. Mary's with BA. Boys swimming, Shattuck St. Mary's dance, and wrestling will all be BA and Shattuck St. Mary's. In the spring, we'll have baseball, which has BA, and we'll add Shattuck. Same for tennis, boys and girls track, and then softball will just be adding Shattuck St. Mary's. Any questions?
I don't. I just want to confirm, Mr. Gunderson, you received some of this information or what you needed late last week, and we have winter sports starting, some winter sports starting on
Correct.
November 13th, correct?
Some started today, like
Oh,
dance started today. So the process you have to go through, you have to have all the schools sign and write down the number of students that they anticipate if they haven't had it in the past. And so it's trying to get all schools to sign and get all the paperwork back. Some people signed on the wrong line, so we had to white it out and send it back and have them re-sign, so I got the paperwork on Friday, so.
So hence the reason it was not in our board packet,
Right.
and it's this kind of last-minute addition, if you will. So. Mr. Robichaud.
Mr. Chair, thanks. Mr. Gunderson, I assume the coaches are all aware of this and fully supportive of this
Yep.
additions.
Yep, coaches are aware of it. It had to go through the Big Nine.
Right.
It went through the Big Nine, and then it also had to go through the section. And it passed through all of that, so.
Great, thanks.
Mr. Olson.
So we're increasing our student count in the sports, right? We are
Correct.
getting some good numbers.
We're trying to. We're trying to sustain some sports. A lot of these sports have really low numbers, and we're trying to get creative of how to get more kids out, so that we can keep them and have opportunities for our kids as well as kids from other areas of our community, and possibly like Randolph. You know, they were in a co-op with Northfield, and they dissolved that co-op, and they had some kids that didn't have an opportunity to play, so.
Mr. Bellingham.
Mr. Chair, thank you. So as I'm hearing, if I'm hearing correctly, this should be a two-part action, correct? First part being a dissolution of the existing co-ops that Mr. Gunderson mentioned, and then second, motion for approval of the new proposed co-ops. I'm hearing that correctly? Good.
Two action items?
Yes.
Is that what I'm- okay. And we're a little out of order here because he's presenting information to us that is new to all of us. So, anyway, other questions or comments regarding any of this for Mr. Gunderson?
I can also say that adding these schools doesn't change our section placement. It doesn't move us to a higher class.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so what I am going to entertain is a motion to dissolve the existing co-ops. Okay, so that'll essentially start with a whiteboard, clean slate, and then we will look to add all the new co-ops that Mr. Gunderson mentioned, and that is for our winter and spring seasons, correct?
Correct.
So, with that said, I'll entertain a motion to dissolve the existing co-ops that Mr. Gunderson referenced.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Olson, a second by Ms. Steves. Any further discussion on this item? Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Okay, now I will entertain a motion to approve the new co-ops that Mr. Gunderson referenced earlier. And I will look to do that now.
So-
moved. Sorry, Richard, you can have that.
I'm going to give
Okay,
that
thank
to,
you,
I'm
Jerry.
going to
You're
give,
welcome, Richard.
I'm going to give that to Mr. Robichaud as the first and Mr. Olson the second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. We appreciate it. Good luck to all the student athletes and the teams.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes item 6. This brings us to item 7, school board public comment guidelines. I will briefly read this, and then it looks like we have 2 community comments this evening. Item number 7, school board public comment guidelines. This is an opportunity for residents, business and property owners, parents, students, and employees of the Faribault Public School District to address the board. You must sign up in person at the board meeting and address the board from the presenter's table. Members of the public will address their remarks with civility and respect. After being recognized by the chair, each individual will identify themselves and the group they represent, if any. Please state your reason for addressing the board. This is not a time to debate an issue, but for the board to hear your comments. Public comment is not available at work sessions, closed sessions, or special board meetings of the school board. The Minnesota Government Data Practices Act prohibits comment about specific student or staff members even without naming them in open session. This includes the public comment portion of our meeting. The board respects and values input, but when it relates to a specific student, staff, or to a specific matter, such input must be heard by the appropriate personnel such as the building principal or superintendent and not during an open meeting of the school board. Anyone interested in making a public comment will be asked to complete an information form before the meeting starts, providing their name, address, and topic of their comment. All comments must conform to School Board Policy 206, which is available for review on the district website at www.faribault.k12.mn.us. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make comments on one specific topic. Each topic will have a total of 15 minutes allowed for comments. With that, I'm tired. Anyway, we will get on to our 2 comments. Miss Mary Hackett, her topic is library books. Please come forward.
Hello. I'd also just divert for 1 second and say congrats to the folks who did the audit and that it worked out so well. That was nice to hear. Okay, well, hello. My name is Mary Hackett, and I'm back to talk about another book available to the high school students in our library at Faribault High School. As a reminder, I'm not advocating for censorship, book banning, or book burning, but I think this content is something that needs to be examined. This is from a book called Me and Earl and the Dying Girl by Jesse Andrews, and I'm just going to hop right into it. Page 60, do you even know how to eat pussy? Not really. Papa Gaines never sat you down, said, son, one day you're going to have to eat the pussy. No, but he did teach me how to eat a butthole. God bless that man. Yep. I would teach you some pussy eating technique, but it's a little complicated. Son, I don't have time for that. I got like 20 pussies over here that I need to eat. Is that right? I'm on pussy deadline. You've got 20 vaginas all lined up in a row. What the hell? What the hell? No one's talking about vaginas. Greg, what the hell is wrong with you, man? That's nasty. I'm talking about pussy. I got a little honey mustard over here, a little Heinz 57, and a whole lot of pussy. Page 111, yeah, fuck, shit, Earl. Werner Herzog can lick my ass cheek. Man, fuck Aguirre, the wrath of God. Werner Herzog can stick his face all up in my butthole. So those are some examples of dialogue from the book. Profanity and derogatory terms tally in this 300-page book. Cock, 2, nigger, 3, fag or faggot, 3, tit, 7, bitch, 8, pussy, 13, goddamn, 17, dick, 22, piss, 27, ass, 57, shit, 88, and fuck, 94. Another commenter at our last public session tried to argue that because kids can access pornography and other objectionable content easily at home, we shouldn't worry about it being present in the books that they read in school. I would simply respond to that with, let's also take away the porn blockers on the school internet. And why not make drugs available in school as well while we're at it? Because they can also get those if they try. And isn't it hypocritical to expect students to conform to any code of conduct in regard to the language they use if these are the kind of books that we give to them? Truth is, there are boundaries, and one of the fundamental duties of decent adults is to protect young people and give them a better start in life than what these books are putting forth as normal for teenagers. At the least, if these books aren't removed from the library, ones with this kind of content should only be available with specific parental permission. I would like to see administration and the board take some action on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Miss Carolyn Treadway, and the topic is FMS climate.
This isn't part of my actual comment, but I am so pleased to see Mr. Gunderson here. I remember him as quite a spirited Jefferson student. Again, I'm Carolyn Treadway. I'm here to remind the board that words do matter. During the September business meeting, a board member alleged that Faribault Middle School is a violent place. This individual made that same claim during an AAUW school board candidate forum 5 years ago. It was an inaccurate claim then and remains so now. I don't understand why a school board member would needlessly disparage the schools they have pledged to advance and protect. Data about FMS behavior referrals presented at the October work session was quite enlightening. That data and the remarks from FMS administrators indicated that a very small number of students present with disruptive behavior. Yet the nature of that behavior is almost never violent. Unfortunately, the board member making the violence allegation was absent from that meeting. FMS data indicates that the majority of behavior referrals involve approximately 5% of the student body. Most referrals are for minor infractions like a student skipping class or disrupting instruction. I don't dismiss the need for behavior improvement by these students. These infractions don't rise to the level of violence, however. After that presentation, I was curious to observe for myself what FMS was like. So I accepted a substitute teaching position there a couple weeks ago. Actually, it was a rainy Friday the 13th. You might imagine what behavior can be on that day at the middle school. Except for one unruly class, I had a lovely day with some amazing students. After an unpleasant time with that class, I spoke to Assistant Principal Jesse Armbruster. As it turns out, 3 of the most disruptive 7th graders were in that class. The rest of the students in that class cooperated fully and did their best to work in spite of noisy disruptions. Sadly, I learned that this behavior is pretty much a daily occurrence with those few students. It appears that a regular middle school experience isn't an appropriate educational setting for approximately 24 FMS students. These disruptive students aren't succeeding, and they're impeding the progress of students around them who want to learn. I understand that the district is considering some restructuring in the coming months, and I implore you to listen to FMS staff about the need for alternative learning options for students who are unable to succeed in a traditional middle school model. A different setting would serve them and their peers well. I thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Treadway.
Yes.
You had that timed well. Okay, thank you. That concludes our public comment session. So this brings us to item number 8, our consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Boudreau, a second by Ms. Steves. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Just for you first-timers in the audience or watching online, the consent agenda, we do not have a discussion item on that. Hence, we move right to a vote. Item number 9, retirements. We do not have any this evening. And so this brings us to item 10, finance. Mr. Gertis, you want to come forward here? Item 10A are the minutes from our September 18th meeting. And then Mr. Gertis will lead us through 10B and all those items there. Does anyone have any questions regarding the minutes from the September 18th finance meeting? No, okay. Mr. Gertis, feel free to take us through the budget and the enrollment investment report and all those.
Okay. I apologize. So before I start with this, one thing that I wanted to share with the board, and I think I shared this with Finance Committee, is last month in September, we approved the preliminary truth and taxation property tax levy. And at that time, the process wasn't fully complete. The process is now complete, and the numbers that I shared at that meeting in September will not change from the property tax levy presentation that will be coming up in December. So I just wanted to give the board a quick update that isn't on the agenda, but I'm just putting my 2 cents in there. First thing on the agenda is the enrollment report. So I don't know if we're putting those up on the screen. Yep, thank you very much. So again, we're looking at October 1st numbers here, right? And what we've presented to the Department of Ed. You can still see that we have, the adopted budget that we are working with of 3,190 kids. And our current projection today, again, 3,134. So the numbers have not changed significantly in total. from the beginning of the year to where we're at now. There's been some moving, obviously, between buildings, and especially at the secondary level, but the numbers have not really changed. We're still 56 below the adopted budget. And again, for the board, I remind you that the adopted budget does not take into account the charter school. So we are planning, we, meaning myself, are planning on doing a budget revision for the board at the November meeting. So you'll see me up here again in November. And we will use updated numbers for that budget revision based off the data that we have on this report that you have today. So any questions on that?
Mr. Gerdes, just since you mentioned real quick the charter school, do you have an approximate number of how many students they have today?
I was out there a week ago Friday, from last Friday, and helped serve lunch there. They had 65 kids that we served at Sarad on that particular day when I was serving lunch. I don't think all of those children are Faribault proper, so I think there's some kids that are attending there from out of town, but I don't know exactly how many that would be.
Thank you.
So, the next report's the investment report. You can see what I shared last month, that looking at the numbers between the end of August and the end of September, which is now almost a month old, that our cash balances and investments have increased by about $600,000. Again, that's a point in time. That point in time is almost a month old now. So again, our cash position should stay pretty steady for a couple months. I shared this at the Finance Committee meeting. The state of Minnesota is moving platforms for federal dollars from SERVs to MEGs. That process is being delayed, surprise, surprise, which will affect how we can draw any federal dollars for fiscal year 24. So this involves all the ESSER funds, all of the federal special ed funds, all of the title funds, and I think that's probably about it. So that will slow down our cash flow a little bit. Estimated time that we'll be able to draw there, they told me it'd be the middle of December. Okay, so hopefully the January board meeting will kind of be back into a regular cash flow again. But again, not a lot of changes here. You can see we continue to invest. Carolyn didn't mention it, but our investment revenue in 23 went up from about $40,000 all funds to a little over $250,000 all funds. So big difference a year makes when the market treats you well. So any questions on the investment report? The next reports that I want to just share again are comparative financial reports. This report, again, is laid out a little bit differently when we get to the bottom, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But you can look at the utilities, not a lot of big things there with utilities, other than at the time of this report, we still had not received our HVAC bill for the month of September. So that is throwing off the percentages there for the month of September. So that will be caught up as soon as the billing cycle gets corrected and we can post numbers for you there. If you look down at the bottom on our self-insurance account, we made this report a little simpler, took some lines off of things, combined a few lines together to keep it a little simpler. So you can see on the revenue, we have now just 4 revenue lines at the top, and then the year to year. And then we have combined all of our expenditures on the bottom to 3 lines from 5 to kind of simplify that up for the school board. You can see at the end of September, again, point in time, we're $1,326 in the hole for fiscal year 24. That being said, to remind the board, we don't collect revenue in this fund on an equal basis. So we don't collect a lot of revenue in the months of July and August, so the only real month that we collected any revenue is the month of September. So being only $1,300 in the hole as of 9/30 is actually a pretty good thing. So we continue to do well in our self-insurance account. Knock on wood, right? Okay? Any questions on that? The next item is a couple reports that I want to show the board. People that are on the finance committee saw this report. So this is a new dashboard that was created by some of the Minnesota people that use this analytical software. And it kind of lays out the general fund in a very easy to read picture kind of way, right? Along with giving current year plus prior 2 years history to go along with it. So the first page here is revenue for the month of September only. So we're in the month of September. We're reporting on the month of September. You can see at the top it says revenue month to date. So this looks at local revenue, state revenue, and federal revenue year to date. Okay? Gives you pictures of the last 3 years. And then if you want to get into the detail down at the bottom, and I know that print is kind of small, it gives you all the numbers that are tied to the graphs up above, if you want to get into the actual numbers of those reports. If we look at the second page of that report, this one does have a programming error to it. It has a 0 in the upper left-hand corner there. There's a ticket in to get that fixed. But it breaks down the expenses for the month of September. So again, 1 month of September, and it shows salaries and benefits, purchase of services and supplies and equipment. And you can see how our salaries and benefits, as the auditors show, doesn't change a lot year over year because we live within our means, right? Looking at 1 month, the purchase of services and supplies and equipment, start of school, those numbers can vary depending on what got ordered when. So not a big deal that you see a lot of variance in supplies and purchase of services, because that's, again, point in time. And then it breaks down all the numbers down below for you again, based on salaries, benefits, purchase of services, so on and so forth, to get into the totals. Okay? Third page on that report looks at year to date, July through September. Again, looking at revenue, and I'm not going to go through all that again, but you can kind of see all of that. And then the final page on that report shows the expenses year to date, July through September. Okay? So any questions on that? I thought it was a new dashboard, a little easier to read from the board's perspective, laid out a little cleaner. Of course, Chad asked me if I'm not going to bring the report back, as he likes the pictures here, right, on this report. So this report is coming back again here for fiscal year 24. And I'm not going to go through a lot on that. This report does include all of the funds. So you have Fund 1 here, you have the Food Service Fund, we have the Community Ed Fund, so on and so forth, that you can look through. This colorful report, again, as a reminder for the board, since you haven't seen this in about 3 months, is kind of our projected, it's our fund balance through September. So you can see in September there's a gap. So our fund balance actual is actually a little higher there, the blue line, compared to last year, the dotted red line, so we're a little higher year over year. But then you can see how the projection tracks pretty much right in line with what it has in the past, right? Because our history here, again, shown by all the reports, doesn't change a whole lot. So, again, you go through and you look at budget to actuals, those circular pie charts. Again, pretty spot on. Not going to go through all of those. And then on page 4, again, if you look at page 4, you will see the summary of all of the funds in the big square in the upper right. And you can see, again, point in time, July through September, kind of where things are at, revenue and expenses. All right? You can see that our post-employment account has lost money the first 3 months of the fiscal year based on market. So we've lost $267 in the upper right-hand corner that you can't necessarily see on that report, but you can see it on the report that's in your board packet. Thank you. Any questions on the monthly financial reports? And again, feel free to email if you have any questions that you think of after the fact.
Board members, any questions for Mr. Gertis?
Very thorough, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, hearing none, thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it. This brings us to item 10B5, Gifts and Donations, Resolution 24-07.
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval of Resolution 24-07.
Thank you, Mr. Bellingham. Do we have a second? We have a second by Ms. Steves. I will read these and then we will do a roll call. Donation number one, Steve and Sue Bauer, 120 rolls of packing tape with an estimated value of $408 for the staff at the Faribault Middle School. Donation number two, State Bank of Faribault, $198. Provide every student in Krista Swanson's first grade classroom at Lincoln one book each month during the school year. Donation number three, Laura Martin, $14. Donation to orchestra program. Donation number four, Faribault Track Association, $7,000 donation for new track pits for high jump and pole vaulting. Donation number five is comprised of two donations for the Nest. 5A, Affinity Plus, 7 boxes of clothing. And donation 5B, Janet Tangren, $500 towards the Nest. With that, Ms. Steves, we'll do a roll call.
John Bellingham,
Aye.
Linda Boudreau,
Aye.
Linda Moore,
Aye.
Richard Olson,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud.
Aye.
Cassie Steves, aye. Chad Wolf.
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. And once again, thank you to all of these people for their generous donations, whether they're in kind or cash. We greatly appreciate it, and the school district does as well. This brings us to item 10C, items reviewed by the Finance Committee and are suggested for board approval. Item 10C1, consider approval of the Faribault High School Spanish trip 2024. Go ahead, you can come forward. I will entertain a motion to approve. Anyone?
Mr. Chair, I'll so move.
Thank you, Mr. Bellingham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Robichaud. Welcome, and if you would, both introduce yourself, and we'll look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. My name is Caitlin Beaupre, and I am one of the Spanish teachers at Faribault High School.
I am Barb Sorum, and I am another Spanish teacher at the high school.
We are currently planning a trip during spring break for 5 days to New York through an established travel company, EF. And the trip is titled Nueva York, which means New York, Latin American perspective. So, of course, doing some of the touristy things that you have to do while you're in New York City, but also examining how people from Latin America that have come to the United States throughout history have influenced New York and created this multicultural environment within the city. So we're really excited about this trip. So far, we have several students signed up. Like I said, it's over spring break, so students wouldn't really miss any school, which is also a bonus. So yeah, we are here to gain board approval so we can continue forward with the process of planning the trip.
Wonderful, thank you. Board members, any questions for either one of these teachers? Mr. Robichaud? Bless you, bless you. We got the sneezes going on in here. Bless everyone. Mr. Robichaud?
Yeah, kind of a correction. They may not miss any classrooms time, but they will certainly learn a lot while they're in New York. So they will be immersed in educational experiences. So great. I do have one question. I asked this of all field trips. Are there scholarships available for students who are not able to financially? I know you have fundraising, but students who cannot financially, for whatever reason, can't deal with the fundraising, they're working, or whatever it is, and so they financially can't afford it. Are there scholarships available for those students?
So like you said, fundraising is always provided for the students, and we already have 3 fundraisers planned, so we do have that in mind, and
Right.
we really want to make this trip available to all students. And so actually this year we are excited to offer a scholarship. Since the German program is no longer in existence at the high school, the Spanish department has absorbed the funds from the German club. which that money that was in the German Club fund was intended for travel and such. So we have taken that money and set it aside as scholarship money for traveling. We created an application for scholarship funds, and as of yesterday, as of today, I have received 2 applications from 2 students. Our deadline is tomorrow, and information about the scholarship application was sent out to parents as well. And so we are hoping that we can make the trip possible for at least those 2 students or any students that would submit an application by tomorrow.
Great.
And judging from those applications, there's a great desire by those students to be able to participate in things like this, but there's a definite barrier because of finances. So we're really excited that this will hopefully open the door for some more students to join us.
Thank you very much for doing that.
Mr. Olson, did you have a question or comment?
Are you concerned at this time, safety in New York City?
No, we are not. We are traveling with an experienced and established travel company. We will always be accompanied by a tour manager, so they will go with us everywhere. They are an experienced tour leader, so they have done this tour many times, and so they are familiar with New York. It's not like someone from Minnesota is just hopping on the plane with us. It's someone who's very familiar with the area, very familiar with the tour. There's 24-hour assistance available to us if something, were to happen or we need help navigating something. 24 hours a day, we have access to assistance from the tour company. As far as if a student were to get injured or something like that, there is coverage through the travel company to help assist with the expenses that would be incurred by that injury or something like that. So no, we are not concerned with safety. I personally have traveled with this company before and was very impressed with their thoroughness, their dedication to serving the people that they have on their tours, and so we are very confident. And I believe Barb has also traveled with them before as well.
Yes, we did our first trips through this company, through EF.
Thank you.
And I took a group back in 2004 with EF Tours on a 17-day trip, and it's a top-notch organization, so.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? Ms. Boudreau?
Mr. Chairman, I just clicked on a little bit more information, and it comes up with this. Is this one of the sites you're visiting? It looks like.
I
it's more
don't
of
know
a
if that is.
activism.
I would think so. I know that part of the tour is seeing some of the murals that have either been done by Latin American artists or are within neighborhoods that are primarily Latin American communities. So I do know that's part of the tour is seeing some of the artistic influences of the Latin American communities in New York.
Thank you.
Yep.
It just looks like it's promoting advocacy, and that's nothing wrong with that, but I just wanted to ask.
Other questions, Ms. Moore?
Yes, Mr. Chair. How many students have signed up? I'm just curious.
As of right now, not including the potential students based on scholarship applications, I believe it is around 10.
All right, any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none, we do have a motion by Mr. Bellingham and a second by Mr. Robichaud. So all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes 6-1. Thank you. Good luck, have fun, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, this brings us to item 10C2, consider approval of Faribault Boys Basketball Kansas City trip November 21st, 2023. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Boudreau, a second by Mr. Robichaud. Mr. Gunderson, do you want to speak at all to this? Or, I can certainly as well. You want me to? So the memo is in front of us. It's attached there. Just a real highlight level, real quick. I'm one of the coaches on the boys high school staff. And Harry Brown's is nice enough to donate a 15-passenger van. Mr. Scott Morrissey will be the driver. We'll take 15 passengers down on Tuesday after school, right before Thanksgiving. So once again, missing no school. We'd get down there Tuesday evening. Wednesday morning, we get to practice at the College Basketball Hall of Fame. Shortly thereafter, we get to experience the College Basketball Hall of Fame. And shortly after that, we get to watch one of our alumnus from Faribault High School, Mr. Joe Palmer, play for Colorado State in their game against Boston College. And then we will drive home and have all the students home for Thanksgiving. So that's kind of the trip in a nutshell. And anything else you'd like to add to it?
Nope. Got 3 supervisors yourself, Eric Hildebrandt, Dean Ryder, going to be on the trip. And it's where you're staying is right across the street from the basketball center. So the hotel, you're not going to be all around town or anything like that. So everything is kind of centrally located right there.
No cost to the students other than maybe a meal kind of thing, and no cost to the district. So
Are you going?
I am.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's a little suspect, but I guess.
It's all fair. It's all fair. Other questions for Mr. Gunderson or myself?
Mr. Chair, what a wonderful opportunity for this trip and also the Spanish trip for our students. So I want to thank all those who put this together to expand their horizons. This doesn't happen very often, to be able to practice in a college level floor and experience one of your alumni playing at a high collegiate level. So it's excellent.
Anything else, board members? Okay, hearing none, we do have a motion by Ms. Boudreau and a second by Mr. Robichaud. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. That brings us to item 10C3. Thank you, Mr. Gunderson. Brings us to item 10C3, consider approval of bid package 1 and bid package 2 for the health and safety deferred maintenance bonds. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Olson and a second by Ms. Boudreau. And we have a crew of individuals coming forward to present to us. Welcome, and just please introduce yourself if you would.
Justin Steffel with ISG, project manager for ISD. Good evening.
Steve Schlake, mechanical engineer.
So I'm going to start. I think everybody knows Kane down at the end, even though he chose not to introduce himself. So I'm going to just start with the background. Then, like I say, we have the 3 experts to my immediate left that will be able to answer any and all specific questions that you might have. The reason and the purpose for the board agenda tonight is to gain approval for bid package 1 and bid package 2, and I'll give a little breakdown. So I believe it was last April, board authorized selling health and safety deferred maintenance bonds. Those bonds are scheduled to be sold towards the end of January, I believe January 22nd of 2024. So once the board authorized that, these 2 gentlemen to my immediate left started working on the bid documents for the 2 projects that we are going to go out and try and get done between the end of school in May or June or whatever it is, and the end of August before school starts back up of 2024. So 2 bid packages that we have today. The first one being in front of you is all the work done at the middle school with an estimated cost of about $4.5 million to include all the control wiring. Second project between the high school and Lincoln Elementary School, estimated cost there at about $3 million. So that's the $7.5 million out of the $10.77 million that is estimated to be gained from the sale of those bonds in January of 2024. So that being said, we're requesting authorization to go out for bid. You can see the bid schedule is in the memorandum that I have attached. Bid date, November 28th, 2023, and the intent is to bring it back to the board meeting on December 4th to gain approval to contract with the lowest qualified bid. So That being said, I will take any questions or preferably generate them to my left.
Mr. Curtis, can you just remind us, when the bonds are sold, what's the term on the bonds? How many years? Are those 5-year, 10-year?
6-year bonds.
6-year bonds, okay,
Yep.
thank you. Thank you. Board members, any questions or comments for any of these gentlemen?
Define again the lowest qualifying bid.
You mean to take that, or do you guys have a book definition you want to?
Well, we would define it as the lowest responsible bid, so it'd be the lowest number, and then we would verify with the bidder that their bid was responsive and encompassed all the scope that we put out. So we reach out to them after bid, post bid, and go through what they put together to make sure that it meets what they're supposed to bid.
Do you, of these contractors, do you check their past history?
We usually have a pretty good pulse on who's bidding what. So to some level, yes. If it's somebody that we're not familiar with, we're going to reach out and find out about them and maybe talk to other school districts or other folks. But there's a handful we work with pretty routinely that, if we see a bid from them, we probably don't dig as deep.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Oh, yes, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Is there some kind of a packet or something that shows a little bit more of what the projects engage? I know we had a presentation a long time ago, but I guess I'm asking I don't know if I'm asking Kane or Mr. Gertis. Do you have something that you could share with us? Or, our staff? If we are asked about these projects, it would be helpful to say what they're
So
accomplishing.
we can send you out, Linda, the
Just
copy
something
of the
brief.
document that these guys are working off of. But
Wonderful.
I think if maybe Justin, as the architect, wants to maybe just talk high level of what you're including in all of those, I think you probably can do that off the top of your head, can't you?
Yeah, and Scott's right. We'll have drawings, that we can send out, and we could color code them or something to help visualize things. But essentially, what we're doing at the middle school is I think we're replacing upwards of 11 air handler units. And Steve, you can hop in here too. I think there's 11 air handler units that include rooftop units, air handler units. So we're just replacing those basically unit to unit.
Correct. Excuse me, a lot of the units are down by the gyms and auditorium, locker rooms and that such is all original to the building. So well past their typical useful life. Some of which don't have cooling or dehumidification, so trying to get that in proper ventilation with that matter. So a lot of that east end of the building. And there's a couple, one was a science classroom, a rooftop unit, and the office main air handler. The office one is actually original also. So then as for the high school, it is the shops rooftop units. I believe it's 96 those were installed. So those rooftops will get replaced basically with very similar but obviously new equipment. And then over at Lincoln, it would be the media center rooftop unit, and then the two classrooms on the very far end, which is the music and art, also rooftop units that are quite old also. So a lot of it's just old equipment that let's get it replaced before it fails, and we can't use the space during that time. So
Well, I think you summed it up pretty well. The only thing you might have not mentioned was building controls. So all buildings nowadays have some level of a automated digital control system in. Years ago, it used to be pneumatic, driven by air compressors, but now it's all electronic so that Kane can effectively manage buildings, from a laptop. So we'll be updating that digital control package in each building as well.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Mr. Olson?
Are you going to do any internal ductwork changes in the buildings or not?
In certain areas, some of it is in pretty good shape yet. We're trying to reuse as much as we can. But like over on the east side of here, the mechanical rooms with the different size units and shape of it, a lot of the ductwork in that mechanical room is getting replaced. As for in the space, like in the gyms and auditorium, that we're trying to reuse as much as possible. It's metal ductwork, it's not fiberglass or anything like that. Can be, suspicious of other issues, I guess. So mainly it's the equipment, I guess, it's getting replaced.
And then with who's going to be looking at it? With the city, or is the state going to come down and look at it?
City inspector. It goes also up for state review, or they'll review all the plans that we put together and make sure they, comply with the standards, codes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I believe you said that's where a lot of the lead time is here in getting these documents reviewed. Is that correct?
Yep. They obviously have time that it takes to get it done, and also obviously ordering equipment in a timely manner. Still not quite back to pre-COVID dates, but they are getting a little better here and there, but it's important to get them bid as soon as possible.
Yeah, as soon as the LTFM funding was indicated as approved, we jumped in and rushed to get stuff put together because there are real lead time issues as well as plan review lead time requirements with the state. So it's important that we get this out on the street here early November.
Which does happen at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
The plan review, bidding, trying to do that at the same time.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. Olson, a second by Ms. Boudreau. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys for coming down.
Brings us to item 10C4, consider approval of letter of understanding and the revised ice arena contract. I will entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, I'll so move.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Bellingham, a second by Ms. Boudreau. Between Mr. Gertis and Mr. Smith and Mr. Bellingham, and Mr. Benty, I think one of you three will give us a little report here.
You want me to do it, or you gonna?
Any one of you three.
Why don't you start and I'll fill in the details. I've talked enough.
All right. So at one of our ICE committee meetings a while back, it was brought up that the chiller at the ice arena has pretty much met its life. It did break down at one time. We were lucky enough to have a tech that had some used parts to put it back together and get the ice back in shape. So it was determined by the ICE committee arena that we need to replace this unit. We were able to find a unit that was in stock rather than buying one that is incurring the cost increases. So we were able to save about $60,000 with this unit. The ICE committee approved to move forward with this, and now we're looking for approval from the board to approve our part of it, I guess, in a nutshell.
I'll chime in a little bit with some of the numbers, so thank you, Kane, for the background. So estimated cost of the chiller that Kane has mentioned was $580,000 turnkey put in. The agreement that you have in front of you, the letter of understanding, is written for up to $600,000. 1/3 of that expense will be ours, so $200,000 at the most will need to be incurred by the school district. The funding for this will come out of LTFM in the short term, but it will be something that we'll be able to levy with the property tax levy in the next cycle that comes around. We missed this cycle that we're currently in now. So something that we'll be able to levy in the future. The contract that is also attached is a revised contract to what the board is used to seeing. So it includes half of our $200,000 in fiscal year '24 and half of the $200,000 in fiscal year '25. That's what you'll see in the agreement in front of you. So split 50-50. We play half the ice expense here soon, the end of October, and the other half when the season finishes up and all the ice hours are trued up for the time the hockey team is spent on the ice.
Mr. Olson?
Will that money be replaced back into our fund after we levy, right?
Correct. That is correct.
Okay. It's long range, has anybody looked at the ice arena for just general updating? The whole facility? Has anybody, since we own a third, has anybody looked at a study?
I think the city kind of has done that in the past, and they bring that up to the ice arena committee for approval. You know, I know they've updated some locker rooms, and I believe their furnace was recently updated, so they bring things here and there, yeah.
It'd be nice to know the board here of what's been done, or what maybe more of a plan. We should be more involved in that, since we own a third.
I think, Richard, that's a good point. I think there's a board member that sits on this. Linda, is that correct? Maybe.
Yes, I'm new to that. So.
Maybe Kane and Linda can sit down and pull
Yeah.
something together and report back at some kind of update in the future.
Mr. Chair, if I may, if you, board members, if you look at the third piece of this, the updated ICE contract, school district 23 to 24 updated, in some of the subtitles or sub-items there, it does address who can rent it and who can't, et cetera. So when you get down into the weeds of the contract, which we're also approving here, it says use of the arena by the school district, use of the arena in additional consideration by the school district, et cetera there. So it gives an idea, that lays it out pretty well, I thought, the agreement between the city, the Faribault Ice Arena Association, and the school district. So I think that'll answer some questions in our preparation here.
Mr. Smith, I know in the last several years, there were a fair amount of articles, in the Star Tribune and whatnot about the new Freon that needed to be used or whatever, right? There was a shortage of the old, or I don't know what all, but it was going to be very costly for a lot of ice rinks. In fact, some were possibly going to close because of it. This updated chiller, does that handle the newer Freon, or do we already have the newer Freon? Or what does that look like? Do you know?
It does not, no.
This
It holds the old style Freon,
this new chiller holds the old Freon?
yes.
And what's the issue around the old Freon and the new Freon? What does that look like?
So my understanding is the old Freon, I don't think it's stopped yet, but it will be stopped manufactured in the next couple of years. The new Freon is incredibly expensive, which would have been a huge cost to the ice arena to upgrade to that level.
But so what happens, total hypothetical, we replace this chiller after the ice is out in spring of 2024. And once again, total hypothetical, 3 years down the road, 2027, we can't get the old Freon. Then do we have to then upgrade to a whole new chiller system with the new Freon? And all three constituents here have spent $600,000 on this system?
I don't think you have to update the whole unit. I think there's just parts that you would update, is my understanding.
So we're confident that this isn't a $600,000 Band-Aid?
Yeah, I'm confident.
I think one thing too, Chad, just like anything else, right? The Freon, the old Freon will continue to be manufactured, kind of like the incandescent light bulbs, right? That just ended of life, so that we don't need to worry about the Freon. And Kane is correct. I had a friend price out Freon for a car. It's about $15 a pound for the old and about $300 a pound for the new. So.
Yeah, I know it's going to be, at some point, catastrophic for these smaller ice rinks that don't have major funding sources. But I just wanted to make sure that this wasn't a couple-year Band-Aid and we're back to the well. So, okay, thank you, I
Mr. Chair,
appreciate it. Yes, Mr. Schultz?
clarification, this new chiller will handle the old and the new Freon?
I think we gotta swap some stuff out to make that happen.
Are you sure on that or not?
I'm not 100% sure.
Well,
no,
could you-
But I can check on that.
Could you check on that? And I would say that, put a stipulation that if the new chiller doesn't handle the new one, how would you state that, Mr. Chair?
You're putting the stipulations in however you want.
Okay.
But I think I know what you're getting at, but
You know what I'm saying? That, approve it, but unless it's not proven that the new Freon will operate. Or something like that, so.
I can check on it. I honestly don't believe we could support putting the new Freon in it, just at the cost. At this time, so, but I'll check on it.
So with that said, we do have a motion and a second. You'd still appreciate that this gets approved. What happens if has this already been purchased we're waiting on our approval? The other two have approved it?
Yes.
Have the other two asked any questions about the chiller and the new Freon? Or they're just good with whatever we got going?
I have not been, had any questions asked that I'm aware of.
They're aware of the Freon issue?
Yep.
And they didn't have any questions?
Not that was brought up at the ICE committee meeting.
Maybe they don't read the Star Tribune.
So, Mr. Smith, if you do find that it would cost a lot to get those new parts, I don't know. If it's 10 years down the road or something, I don't know what the magic number is, but my concern would be just if it's a couple years down the road and whatever new parts we need at some point, or we find out that this Freon isn't available, just trying to safeguard against spending a couple $100,000 for a couple years, I guess. We need to do something clearly, right? But I don't know what the alternatives are. But it seems crazy to me that nobody knows this answer, quite frankly. I'm just really struggling with the city, the ice arena, and quite frankly, us not knowing this answer.
Mr. Chairman, do we need to modify the motion to
What happens if we?
ensure that the new chiller would be able to be adapted to the new Freon?
What happens if we either we do that or we table it? How time sensitive is this?
If you table it, we just wouldn't get the deal on the one that's in stock.
Well, we clearly want the deal, so I think that saves us a fair amount of money, right? So I think what I'm hearing is put some stipulation around this, that if you find out regarding the parts and whatnot, if you're not comfortable, you'd let us know ASAP and you would not move forward, I think is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? Am I hearing that or no?
The alternative would be then that they don't purchase the ice machine or the chiller? Is that what I'm hearing you say, just to be clear? Because then there'll be no ice or hockey or anything if this one goes down.
Well, there will be this year, right? Because this is not getting installed until spring or summer of 2024, correct?
Right.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, we got our fingers crossed this year.
Yeah, then what happens for 25?
Well, would we not have to go back to the drawing board and find an alternative if we find out that this situation only gives us 2 years of a Band-Aid?
I don't know what the alternative is.
Wouldn't we have to investigate that?
I think the alternative would be we'd have to get the new Freon.
Right.
And the three shareholders would have to figure out where that money comes from to pay for that.
Mr. Robichaud?
Chair, thank you. We're only 1/3 of this cooperative relationship. You're absolutely right, Mr. Smith. The other two parties are going to have some discussion about this as well. So it's not just us, it's two other parties that have to be involved in this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly recognize the need for it. I just want to make sure that we're all making a good, longer-term decision, if you will. That's all I'm looking for.
Yeah, and I think Mr. Smith has to communicate this concern with the other two parties so that they're fully aware of what we're discussing and what our concerns are.
So, Mr. Bellingham, you made the motion to approve this as is. Ms. Boudreau, you seconded it. I think we're still good with the guidance to Mr. Smith that should he find anything out that this isn't more of a longer-term solution and that would give him any reason of concern, that he would bring this back to us.
Would that be an amendment to this?
That's what I'm wondering. I don't know that we need an amendment other than just some guidance and direction of our thoughts. Is that would people agree with that, or do you feel, Mr. Bellingham, you made the motion? Do you feel that you need to make an amendment to this?
One, you have a motion and a second.
Correct.
So if there's a motion from the floor here, it needs to be made. Otherwise,
For an amendment. Otherwise,
Otherwise, but I think in the discussion, you have laid out some stipulations here. So other than changing the motion, which I'm not going to do, so we go from there.
fair enough.
Mr. Chairman, I think you've made it very clear that you have concerns about whether or not the new chiller would be modifiable, and initially, Mr. Smith said he thought it would be, so I think we just need a little more evidence or clarification on that. And I think we have that all on record.
Mr.
Chair, I
Robichaud?
would like to also ask that if it is adapted to the new liquids, that we know what that cost would be.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions? Thank you. We appreciate it. Hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Okay, this brings us to item 11, Policy Committee. Item 11A are the minutes. There is no report there. So we move to item 11B, and we will entertain a motion to approve Policy 720 vending machines, Policy 908 capital projects policy, Policy 427 workload limits for certain special education teachers, and Policy 620 for credit for learning. We will look to approve all of those policies at once, and then we will come back to Policy 907 and Policy 406 that Ms. Moore had referenced earlier. Okay? Do I have a motion to approve Policy 720, Policy 908, Policy 427, and Policy 620?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Robichaud, a second by Ms. Boudreau. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, has the superintendent reviewed these?
These policies have been reviewed by the policy committee, as well as any department members that needed to, and have been vetted through the policy committee as well. So,
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions on these policies? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Okay, this brings us to Policy 907. I will entertain a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Steves, a second by Mr. Benty. Further discussion?
Mr. Bellingham.
I'm sorry, who did I say?
I'm not a superintendent caliber, so.
Sorry. We have thank you.
That was a wonderful compliment he gave you.
Thank
You know, Mr. Bellingham?
I agree with that.
Okay.
I didn't want to have that responsibility right
To
now.
clarify, we have a motion by Ms. Steves and a second by Mr.
Thank you.
Bellingham. Thank you.
Okay, no worries.
Further discussion.
Yes, Mr. Chair. One of my concerns is that I know that some members of the community have expressed some, concerns about the renewable energy. So I would like to add an amendment. And actually, it was all, and it's 3B, the Director of Facilities and Grounds shall be responsible for the development of a comprehensive energy plan that includes efficiency plans which address the following areas. All renewable energy installations on school property must be approved by the community. And I know I was talking to Mr. Benty before this, and I think the concern that I have is that if we would ever enter into any joint powers agreement or any consortium with anyone, that we would need to run this by the public. Don't you think the community should have some say in this? Especially, like I said, if we would have a joint powers agreement or a consortium. After speaking with Mr. Benty prior, you had mentioned some things with, do we want the public to have a voice in this, or would they have to approve of this, which would be a vote? And as you said.
So my question to you was, are you looking for voice from the community, or are you looking for vote from the community? Because voice can be done through town hall meetings or meetings that.
Or even at a meeting like this.
Or even at a special meeting of the school board.
Right.
If you're looking for a vote, then you're talking about an election in the community that would cost the district, if it was a standalone election, would cost the district, I'm going to guess, around $70,000. So I think the board, with this amendment, needs to clarify, are you looking for voice or vote from the community?
So I think it depends on how big the project is. Sometimes if we have, for instance, a joint powers agreement with with other districts to put up some the wind turbines, I think we'd need to have a vote from the public. So I don't know, after speaking to Mr. Benty, I really would like an amendment to that, if I may. I don't know if, I'm assuming I can do that.
Ma'am?
I would like, prior to all renewable energy installations on school property, there will be public input, and/or the public will approve of the project. Because I think if it's a large project, like, for instance, if we went in with other districts for solar, wind, or something like that, because I know that is possible, because I was reading about that. But I think we would have to have a vote, but otherwise, I think, we should have some public input into this, because I know the public came up here, members of the public, and they expressed some concerns about solar and wind. So that's why I am proposing this amendment.
Yeah, Mr. Bellingham?
Mr. Chair, so could you please state what your amendment is without going into speaking for the amendment or against the amendment, please?
Prior to all renewal energy installations on school property, there will be public input, and/or the public will approve of the project.
Okay, so that's.
So, yeah, that would depend on the.
Nope, she can't. That's her amendment. She
Right.
can speak to
Okay.
or for
Right.
it.
So that's her amendment. Does her amendment have a second?
Second.
Okay, so I'm just making notes of this. So we heard Ms. Moore's amendment. Mr. Olson has seconded that amendment. We can have further discussion on that amendment, correct?
Yes.
I believe. Further discussion on the amendment, Mr. Robichaud?
Only on the amendment.
Only on the amendment.
Only on the amendment. I'm discussing
at
on
this
the
time.
amendment, yeah.
So just the amendment, not the.
At this time on the amendment,
Got it.
correct? Yep.
Ms. Moore, I appreciate and respect where you're coming from as far as the public goes. I really do understand that. The thing I would state is that, we're all elected to represent the public. the community, and you said many, many times that you're representing the community. That's what the 7 of us are supposed to be doing. They've empowered us, if you will, through their votes, to make the best decisions on behalf of this district, financially, student achievement, whatever it is. And when it comes down to renewable energy, we also are responsible to implement policies that are in the best interest of the district. Moreover, I believe that most all of our committees, including the Finance Committee and the Facilities Committee, does have public participation. And those people are volunteers who come and they will also represent the community. So I think the issue of having this amendment to indicate that, and if I heard you correctly, and please correct me if I didn't hear you correctly, you are saying that the public should vote on whether or not we install
I said
renewable
and
energy?
or.
I'm sorry?
I said and or. So if it's a big project, I was thinking we could, I think the public should vote on this. If it's
Okay, then I'm confused as to where the and, where the or comes into play. If I can have a clarification of that, I'd really appreciate it.
Okay. Actually, this all came about because of the fact that I read something in the audit that our district, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to explain here, Mr. Menti, along with 13 other school districts, will be participating in a joint powers agreement. And this was way back, and I don't think anyone did anything about it, but when I read it in the audit, I thought, from what I had read, that our district, along with 13 other districts, will be participating in a joint powers agreement for the Minnesota Schools Wind Energy Cooperative. And my question, I guess, was, I hadn't heard about this, and, did the board approve of it? And apparently, I don't think anything ever came of it. I think it was from 2005. So when I saw this, I thought, if there's something like this, we really need to have I feel anyway, the community should have input and a vote on this.
And vote on whether or not we should install renewable energy in the district. I'm asking for clarification.
If there was
sir.
something like this with, if we went along with other districts, I think that we would need voter approval on that. If it were smaller projects, I know some people in the community have some concerns about solar and wind, and I think they should have input in that. So that's where I stand, and
Okay.
you stand on.
And I appreciate the clarification.
I think that clarified.
I really do.
Okay.
I just think that we are here, elected officials, representing the
Yes, I
community.
respect that too.
And that the committees, again, have public input, community input. And I think if we'd be opening up a significant issue if we were to ask the community to vote on every policy that's implemented, and I just have some concerns about that. Thank you for the clarification.
Mr. Benti?
So this might be because I spent this morning with some attorneys going through some training, but I don't think they're going to be very excited about the and/or language.
Oh.
They're going to want you to pick one, or they're going to want you to explain the and/or. So,
Okay.
so that would have to be something that, because it then becomes very subjective in who's deciding the and or the or. So I think that just comes from, like I said this morning, I spent 4 hours with attorneys going through language, but I don't think they're going to be, because if the board decides this, I want to make sure I run it through the school district's attorneys to make sure it's all kosher, and I'm pretty sure they're going to have a problem with that choice that's in there.
Okay, so.
So my suggestion would be then just to prior to all renewable energy installation on school property, there will be public input. Even though I know it's on committees, but not everybody, I don't know how many
So I
members of the
apologize here.
public
This is
are,
getting,
yeah.
I'm getting a little confused. You made a motion, I'm sorry, you made an amendment that had that and/or language in there, I believe. And Mr. Olson, you seconded that and/or language, I believe. So with that, that's what we're voting on right now. Am I following the rules, everybody? Is everybody following me?
I think so.
Okay. So with that, is there any further discussion on the amendment that Ms. Moore made, that Mr. Olson seconded?
Mr. Chair, could you read that again, please, for clarification, exactly what we're voting on?
You want me to read it?
I would like you to read it, please.
With the and/or on it, right?
Or I'd like,
Ms. Zavarro, do you have the exact language?
Well, I've got what was submitted. Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
That's right.
Yes.
This
I-
amendment is different than
That's right.
Correct. So, Ms. Moore, would you please read?
Okay.
And I'll do
With
my
the
best to
and/or.
write it here again.
and it
What-
has to be exactly what you made the motion for,
Yes.
not what you want to
Yep.
have.
Yes.
Yep.
Prior
Yep.
to all renewable energy installation on school property, there will be public input and/or the public will approve of the project. That was the. Can we have that again? a little
Yes.
slower and
There-
louder, please? Right, do you want me to just bring it over there? Pardon?
Just,
No,
You
I'd like
have
it
it
read.
written?
Okay.
Why don't you
Prior-
just give it to Kathy?
go ahead.
Well, it should be stated out loud.
Yeah.
Prior to all renewable energy installations on school property, there will be public input and/or the public will approve of the project.
Okay, so that's a different amendment, a different,
I had an amendment to this, yes.
that's different than what you sent me.
Because
But
I
we do
spoke
need
to
that. I do need that
Mr.
in writing.
Benty this afternoon, so.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to read that one last time. I'm sorry. I think I have almost all of it. One last time.
Prior to all renewable energy installation on school property, there will be public input and/or the public will approve of the project.
Thank you.
Did I read it slow enough?
Yep, I have it now. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion, a second to that amendment. Any further discussion on that amendment? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye, and maybe, Ms. Steves, you can do a roll call on this.
John Bellingham,
Nay.
Linda Boudreau,
No.
Linda Moore,
Aye.
Richard Olson,
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud,
No.
Cassie Steves, no, Chad Wolf,
No.
fails.
Okay, thank you. So now we are back to policy 907, energy efficiency, just like it was presented. And we have a motion by Ms. Steves and a second by Mr. Bellingham. Any further discussion on this?
Mr. Chairman, oh, I'm sorry.
Ms. Steves, go ahead.
So totally agree with some of the points that were made in the slur of amendments. But in all honesty, I think that every one of our policies, every one of our decisions, the public has 3 minutes every month to come and speak with us. Not to mention the, weeks leading up to all of our phone numbers, our emails are public knowledge. So if you have a input, question, comment, concern, I think all of us would be more than welcome to hearing it, and making informed and the best decision for our district, so. That's
Thank
all I
you, thank you. Ms. Boudreau?
Mr. Chairman, my question is, should there be a renewable energy project, solar or wind, would the board be the authority to approve it? And I think the answer is yes. And so we are public figures. We have, people can reach us, talk to us like they have on many issues. And so I feel that it's not really needed. But I respect, Linda, I respect your concerns about it, and I just wanted clarity that we would make that decision.
Anyone else, Mr. Olson?
Yeah, in my opinion only, that the district should not be involved in the solar or wind projects at all. I know my first term, there was one of the cabinet members brought forth wind turbine project to us. It means considerable money. And it turned out to be a scam. Thank God we didn't vote yes on that. So that would have cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't know if I still have the notes on it, but it was way back in the 2005 or 6. I don't believe we should be taking taxpayers' money to invest in solar or wind at all. Let's donate that money to, use them for our kids. More tutors to raise math scores, science scores, reading scores. This is just, to me, it's just a waste of money. It could be a scam. Then how do we explain that to the taxpayers? We spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a project that goes bankrupt.
Okay, duly noted.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Boudreau?
discussion's kind of broadened a bit, and I just want to make a statement that I believe there was an option with the proposed project that did not cost our district on the front end anything. And I would be very concerned about that as well. But I think we don't want to leave the impression with the public that we are investing any money at this point. We have not approved a project. We'd have to look at it. We'd have to make sure it did not take away from funds that are needed in our classrooms. And so I just feel like clarity maybe is a good thing to have during this discussion.
Correct. This is policy only. There is no project in front of us. This is policy only at this time. Mr. Olson?
Yeah, if they, solar or wind, if they want to lease property, that we have, whatever it is, sure. But again, just rent or lease the property on a 20 or 30 year, that's fine, but we're not involved in the project except just the land itself. That's fine. I have no problem with that. But there's should be no taxpayer money. In fact, when you lease it, you actually make a profit. But I know profit is not part of our vocabulary, and maybe it should be.
No, thank you, Mr. Olson. But I think, once again, this is policy only. We're not looking at any option A, B, C, D through Z for any project at this time. So we do have a motion by Ms. Steves. We have a second by Mr. Bellingham.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms. Moore.
Yes, I just want a point of clarification here. We did have a member of the public, I know, come up a couple of months ago and speak about this. So I think we've discussed it enough, and so I'm going to call the question.
Perfect, thank you. We've called the question, so all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She's called the question, so now you must act on the calling the question. So it requires a second if she's going to call the question.
Is there a second to call the question?
Sure.
Okay, we have a second by Mr. Olson. Do we need supermajority or just majority?
You need supermajority.
Supermajority, that would be 5 out of 7
That's correct.
by math's sake?
Is not a debatable or amendable.
Okay, so thank you for that. Okay, bear with me here. I'm taking notes. How you doing over there? We have a new newbie over there that's getting trained in very quickly. Although she's maybe used to this. Okay, so Ms. Moore with the call the question. Mr. Olson with the second. All those in favor of calling the question, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so that was 7-0 to call the question. Is that correct?
Yep.
I think. Okay, the question is now called. So with that, back to Ms. Steves made the motion. Mr. Bellingham made the second. All those in favor of approving policy 907, energy efficiency, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No. Roll call.
We can't do a roll call after the vote.
We can't.
Okay, so that's 5-2 motion passes. Policy 907 is approved 5-2. Okay, this now brings us to policy 406, public and private personnel data. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second again.
We have a motion by Mr. Bellingham, a second by Mr. Bellingham. Further discussion.
Motion by Mr. Robichaud.
I'm sorry, what did I say there?
Called me twice. That's okay. I know it's
It's a long day.
It is.
We have a motion by Mr. Robichaud, a second by Mr. Bellingham. Further discussion, Ms. Moore. Thank you.
Okay.
I apologize.
We're in policy 406 now, right? Public and private
Yes.
personnel data. Yes, I noticed there was a change from may to must in it was VF, personnel data. It used to be may be disseminated to labor organizations to the extent necessary to conduct elections. Now it is must. And I guess I wonder what the reasoning is, and so therefore I would like to make a motion that we leave the language as it is. I think it should be may. And I'd like to know the reasoning for the change behind this, from may to must. And must is that, you have to do it, right, Mr. Venti?
Must
May-
is stronger than may. May leaves the option,
Yeah.
must takes away that option.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Bless you.
Yeah, God bless.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I can answer that question. I just went through Phase 3 MSBA this last week, and it was all about policies. So, there's mandatory policies, there's legal requirement policies, and there's recommended policies, and this one falls under mandatory policies because it was passed by the legislature.
Good.
So that is why it's here.
thank you. Ms. Moore, does that answer your question?
Yes, and so the people no longer have the freedom of choice to opt out if they so wish. Like, if they were, the personnel data, they will have their personal data released to these organizations. They don't have a choice in the matter, is that correct, no? Because it's law that they have to do this. That's how I'm reading it, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Other discussion, conversation, questions? Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Robichaud, a second by Mr. Bellingham. Hearing no other discussion, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Motion passes 5-2. Okay, this brings us to other matters. Item 12A, consider approval of Resolution 24-08, designating Jamie Kenny as identified official authority for Minnesota Department of Education secure websites to add and remove names only for Faribault Public Schools as of October 30th, 2023. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Boudreau, a second by Ms. Moore. Mr. Benty, is there anything you'd like to just touch on here?
This is just a transfer of rights from Kathy Zavarol, who has retired as of last Friday. Yeah, well, October 1st, but she's still here. She's doing a phased retirement option. So that transfers those rights to Jamie Kenny, who is our new admin assistant for Faribault Public Schools.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Olson.
Maybe this is a good time for Jamie to introduce herself.
How about if we do that in about 3 minutes, 5 minutes, when we get to other school board member information? Is that okay? We'll
Yeah,
have that
sure, I don't
up.
care.
Perfect. I just want to stick to this and making sure this gets approved. Other questions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, this is a roll call. Ms. Steve, will you please do a roll call?
John Bellingham?
Aye.
Linda Boudreau?
Aye.
Linda Moore?
Aye.
Richard Olson?
Aye.
Jerry Robichaud?
Aye.
Cassie Steves? Aye. Chad Wolf?
Aye.
Passes 7-0.
Thank you. This brings us to item 12B, consider approval of the 2023-2025 agreement between Faribault Education Association and ISD 656. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
See if I can get this one right. We have a motion by Mr. Robichaud and a second by Ms. Boudreau. Any further discussion?
Is Scott still here?
Mr. Gertis is still here.
Maybe he's gone, I guess. Could he come up?
Sure. Mr. Gertis, you want to come up, or Ms. Yoakum, either one of you, both of you?
Both.
Yes.
Okay, Rob.
Mr. Olson, do you have something in mind specifically? Otherwise, the agreement is in front of us.
It just update us on the history and how they get at this.
Okay.
Just everything. They got time.
Boy, looks like I'm talking now.
I guess I would ask what specific questions that you do have, because everything is outlined in the memo that's on there.
Maybe
So-
go through it for the public as they're watching, hopefully.
You want it line by line, every change?
Sure, why not?
You do the first part.
It's,
I'll do the
okay.
one, but I'll-
It's 4 pages worth of stuff, so touch on your highlights that you'd like to.
Okay, thank you. So, we, just to kind of give you a little history on the process, we had several small committee meetings with our teacher union. It was a very collaborative process. We're real happy with how things went between all of us. We talked through some big issues that we have coming down the road for us, and we were able to put together some changes that we think will benefit everyone. So just a summary here. On the just kind of high level, we did make some changes to our sick leave definition, which follows the new law that will come into effect this January to address the earned sick and safe time law. We made some changes to our maternity and family leave so that it is more inclusive to all employees. Let's see.
When you say include, explain that, inclusive to more employees. What,
So we took out things that are that are either gender specific or that are pertain more to a mother versus a father to make it more of a family leave versus one or the other.
so
We then-
maternity leave refers to the woman. Are you saying that also refers to the man too?
Well, when I had all of my children, my husband also had his children.
Okay,
So he's offered
okay.
paternity leave as his benefit package allows.
More like family leave.
That's
That's basically
they're
what,
changing
yeah,
it to family leave.
okay.
And this is to match state statute.
Oh.
So the state is requiring us to make some of these changes in our contract language, and this is one of the areas
just
where
wanted
we're
to-
required to make that change.
Okay, so then one of the next big items that we did make a change to is in regards to our emergency closings. So prior to this contract, we had 2 days that were essentially built into the calendar. So when we had an emergency closing, such as a snow day, we had 2 days where no one was required to report, and there was no education going on for students. So the change is now we eliminated those 2 days and we go directly to our what we call our Falcon Flex days, or our e-learning days. We defined some, or just kind of clarified some language in terms of how we pay people when they're working additional periods per day. And then we clarified and made some enhancements to our compensatory leave for our teachers. And then we also clarified and added some changes to our vacancies in terms of our teachers on special assignment. We added a clause where anyone who's hired in a TOSA or a teacher on special assignment position, there is a 4-year they're in the position for 4 years, and then we would repost it and apply or interview for the position. In the actual interview process, we will interview with a committee that includes teacher members within the interview committee. And then the only other piece that we really did was just clarified some things within our Appendix C, which is just titles of some after-school or targeted services and credit recovery instruction. Scott, do you want to go over the?
Thank you for the use of your. So I don't get feedback. So when we get down into the financial piece of this at the end of the documentation, so a lot of the moving parts, obviously, to the teacher contract, but year one, everybody gets steps and lanes. So for those teachers that are eligible, they'll move in that direction. a 5.7% increase to Appendix A, B, and C in the salary schedule. Insurance increases for employees not covered under the cap, so that rolls up to, for the actual increases for those people that aren't maxed out already. Longevity increases, another 0.5% on the MSRS, or the Healthcare Savings Plan. Some miscellaneous hourly provisions for the counselors. All natural roll-up costs, so that would be anything that is overhead related, Social Security, TRA, work comp, and everything else that is driven as a percentage of a dollar amount for the salary. That gives a total package of 6.84% in year one.
What did you have budgeted for the year one?
I do not have that sheet in front of me, Mr. Olson, so I would have to get my computer to actually look that up. So if you want to hold on to this, I'll go get, unless you have my sheet readily available. That spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet I'm waiting for would be the same one that the board has reviewed in previous motion or previous meetings, but we'll look it up again here for you. Otherwise, I can get it. Get mine. That might be faster. So the budget amount for year one, $1,655,000, rounded up.
And what percentage was that
3.71 total package
for the first year?
for the first year.
So we're over by 3%.
We are over by, roughly
Okay,
$589,000.
so with that increase, will that hurt our kids, our students?
It's
I
it's following what the board gave us direction to do. So all we're following is what the board approved here.
Mr. Benty, you've got something you'd like to say?
Yeah, I wouldn't look at it like that. I would look at it as that we were operating under the parameters that the board approved for us to operate under, up to the amount that you gave us permission to operate up to, so.
But that's not the question on the floor. The 3% increase,
One of our goals, Mr. Olson, was to retain teachers. Research shows that teachers who are in the profession longer have more skills, and teachers who are in the district longer have more skills in the way that they present information and deliver that information. So our goal is to retain those teachers and to keep them in our district so that they can keep growing with us. And this contract, because of the way it's structured, does that. It keeps us competitive with Northfield and with Owatonna. And so at least one of the three, I feel that it does help benefit our students, yes.
and the board's goal is to balance the budget and educate our kids.
Right, that's one of the board's goals.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand.
And it's, every package seems to go over, I've been doing this for too long, goes over and we have to balance it, and then we have to have cuts. And people have said on this board many, many times, they hate cuts. I hate cuts, but that's reality. So, then, of course, we didn't set a budget for year two, right? But you kept with that 3.8. Is that basically what we have budgeted for the second year?
There's no budget aligned yet.
It's no budget,
For
so.
fiscal year 2025.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Are you through your presentation?
No, if you, I
Okay,
didn't talk
sorry.
about really year two unless Mr. Olson wants some more detail. We never.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I mean, I think year two really lays out everything kind of the same way year one did, other than the numbers are different.
Thank you. So you're good on your presentation? We're open for any questions, comments, anything, board members, before we go to a final vote?
And roll call too, please.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, I'm not hearing any. Ms. Steves, will you please do a roll call?
John Bellingham,
Aye.
Linda Boudreau,
Aye.
Linda Moore,
Aye.
Richard Olson.
No.
Jerry Robichaud.
Aye.
Cassie Steves, aye. Chad Wolf.
Aye.
Passes 6-1.
Thank you. We appreciate all your efforts on this, and we also appreciate the FEA's efforts on this as well, and so thank you very much. Okay, this brings us to item 13, other items of information, item 13A, school board members, and before we do that, if we can, have Ms. Jamie Kenny introduce herself, if you would, and welcome to Faribault Public Schools and your new role, and if you would, the floor is yours. Bless you again. Just introduce yourself and tell us whatever you'd like to.
My name is Jamie Kenny, and I have lived in Faribault since 2011. And my previous role, I was an executive assistant at another school district, and I was doing a long commute. And then I saw that this position opened up, and I was thrilled to be able to work at the school that my kids graduated from, the school district, and to be in my hometown. So it's just an honor and a privilege to be here to serve all of you. So that's all.
Welcome, thank you. Glad to have you. Board members, any questions or comments for Ms. Kenny?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Ms.
Are
Rolfe.
we getting distinguished? We got two Jamies.
I'm going to guess you're not the first person that has asked that.
I know, I did ask that in my interview. I said, how do you feel about having an assistant with the same name?
I told her that I talk to myself a lot and I call myself by my first name. So when I say, Jamie, you're such an idiot. Why did you do that? She shouldn't think that I'm saying that about her. So
Mr. Chair, I
Yes,
just
Mr.
want
Wiltshire.
to say I'm glad that we now have a full slate on this side of the room as well. So
Gotcha. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I'm excited to have Jamie here, and I know her personally, and I know she's going to do a great job.
Mr. Chair, just want to say welcome.
I'd like to say welcome, and I'd also like to say thank you to Kathy, because
Yes.
as I said to Miss Kenny out in the hallway, I said I hope you have big shoes because you have big shoes to fill. And Ms. Zavarel, you do a lot for us. You've done a lot for us. Whether it's this board or all the prior boards, I think we all greatly appreciate your efforts and what you do. And I can't speak for any of the Superintendent Venti or Superintendent Sesker. Nasco, where do we have the camera right now? But anyway, just a sincere amount of gratitude and thank you to you. So I think we all wish you well. We wish you a speedy recovery. And if there's one lesson, be careful when you're on that dance floor. Thank you. Mr. Olson?
Yes, Kathy is hard to replace. It really is. I've been with her, with the board for many, many years, and she always gets things done right away. When I call her up on the phone, it's done before I hang up. It's just great. She works with anybody, of course, works highly with the board for meetings and everything. It just, I suppose, making a statue in the district office would be too much. But, yeah, she's, irreplaceable, but Jamie's going to do it. Jamie's going to really do a great job, so thank you, Kathy.
Yes, Ms. Steves.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Steve.
I echo what all of the other board members have said about Kathy. It's been wonderful to get to know you, and Jamie will do great. You know it.
Mr. Robshaw, you had something?
On a personal note, Kathy was one of my first hirees when I was here as a director of special ed a few years ago, 1989.
Wow.
And as somebody has often said, your leadership is dictated by the people you hire. And I am so proud to have been part of that relationship with Kathy and continued on for all the years that we've done that, Kathy. So God bless you and take care of yourself.
Mr. Chair, I just want to say Kathy will see you down at the car cruise.
Any other comments, questions you want, Ms. Moore?
Just one more. Thank you, Kathy, for all that you do.
Okay, so that's that part of the welcoming and the thank you. Board members, the floor is still yours, so if there's anything you'd like to share, we're still on this topic, this item. Anything anybody would like to share?
Which topic?
School board members, so if there's anything you'd like to share, the floor is yours.
I would like to share that I misstated. I did phase 4. Well, I did phase 3 last month, but phase 4 this month, MSBA training. And I felt this one was probably the most, I learned the most in this one about policies, and I would even talk to the policy committee about a recommendation that they made to see if we are doing that. But anyway, just wanted to say I'm glad they're done.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Ms. Moore, did you have something?
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Chair. I really think it's time that we, the board and the administration, address some of these books. I know Ms. Hackett has, she spoke 3 times now, and I've been taking some of the notes and some of the things, and I'm just flabbergasted. It's 20 vaginas lined up, nigger, bitch, at the F word 94 times. I really think it is time that we address this issue. I'd like to know who purchased these books, where did they come from? And it's certainly, these books, because of just the wording and everything, this is certainly not normal, nor is it healthy for our students to have these books available. And I'm not sure what the answer is, but when the last 3 times I've been just taking notes on what some of these, quotes from Ms. Hackett, and I think it's time that the board and administration address this issue, because it's certainly not normal, nor is it healthy. And so I think we need to get this on the agenda. I'm not sure exactly what the procedure is, but I think we need to at least get it on the agenda and talk about it a bit. And that's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Other board members, any thoughts? Floor's yours.
Mr. Chair, I would agree with what Ms. Moore just said. I don't know how these pornographic statements and trashy language in a book really helps our students. And I would appeal to MSBA or another group that's maybe has some model for either a committee to oversee some of these books and look at what is the proper way to deal with these complaints and concerns. I'm not sure, I don't have a specific policy in hand, but I just think the board should look at that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
thank
Mr.
you.
Billingham.
So what I'd like to see now that we have one contract done and whatever, is that I'd like to see the board refocus on student achievement and what we can do to help our kids learn and achieve. And I think that should be the utmost priority right now. And move on from there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Billingham. Anyone else? Okay, that concludes item 12A. So, I'm sorry, 13A. So 13B, Mr. Benty, the floor is yours, sir.
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Chair. So I would like to welcome Jamie. She's, believe, going to do an amazing job for us. Today was her first day, and she jumped right in and was involved, and we had a little bit of time today to get to know each other a little bit, but I think that she's going to do a great job, and she comes with us with quite a bit of experience in this position as well. So, and with that, I would also like to say thank you to Kathy. She's been the person that has really, I would say, helped me the most in this position, because just understanding what needs to happen and when it needs to happen and what should be at the top of my pile versus what can be at the bottom of my pile, and then being able to come in and just have that kind of firm hand with me and say, you need to do this right now, has been incredibly helpful as well. So thank you for that. I also want to say thanks to Scott Gertis. We continue to have amazing audit results. I think it's just a testament to the way that we spend our money, and the transparency in which we do our business, that the audit team continues to not find fault with really anything that we are doing. So thank you, Mr. Gertis. I know it was a team effort, but that team is under your leadership and under your guidance, so thank you for that. I actually was texting here with Kane Smith. He talked, the new chiller will run the new Freon, and there is no cost to upgrade it. It was included in the purchase price. So there's the update
Thank
on
you.
that. And, I didn't realize you were still sitting there, sorry. I thought he had already left.
Thank you.
And just to remind the board that this 1 week from tonight, we have our work session. So it's a 1 week turnaround, and we will have the main topic on the board agenda will be me reporting on what the board asked me about back in April, which was possible reorganization options for the district. So bring your questions that you have, because that will be the main topic for next Monday evening. And Mr. Chair, that is all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Judge?
Yes, Mr. Robichaud.
Jamie, because that's a significant discussion, how soon do you think you can get that supporting documents out to us?
I will have them, I got to do some finishing touches on them tomorrow and maybe a little bit Wednesday morning. So I'll have them on the board packet by Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So when it's posted, we'll have it right away. Okay. Item 14, dates to remember, information only here, November 6th, 2023, 5:30 PM, work session right here, as Mr. Benty just mentioned. November 7th, 2023, 3:45 PM, right here, the policy meeting. November 13th, 2023, 7:30 AM, finance meeting. That's a virtual meeting. November 20th, 2023, 5:30 PM is a board meeting, here, once again, in this room. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the regular meeting, and we will start a closed session here at 8 o'clock, so 5 minutes. So with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the regular meeting.
So moved. Second?
We have a motion by Ms. Boudreau, a second by Ms. Steves. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you to everybody that attended.